Hi, my name is Hala Dosari, and I would like you to present an overview of gender reforms attempts in Saudi Arabia after Vision 2030. Beginning of this year, King Salman issued a royal decree instructing all governmental entities to list all of the services offered to women and to declare the basis for any of the regulations which require a guardian consent. He also instructed them to coordinate with the National Commission for Human Rights, which is a governmental human rights organization, to allow them to train the individuals and members of the government on the international conventions regarding women and the reservations which were put forth by the state, which is a general reservation against applying any of the articles of CEDAW, which are considered in violation of Sharia law, and a specific one which treats men and women equally when it comes to conferring their nationality to their children. In Saudi Arabia, women are not allowed to confer their nationality to their children and husbands except with a set of conditions that must be approved by the Minister of Interior. The royal decision came after almost a year-long social media campaign to highlight the impact of the guardianship system on Saudi women. The decree is not expected to ease the control of the guardians on women's lives, especially in the private sphere, but only to ease those restrictions which are imposed by the government on women in seeking services or resources. As such, the still is still upholding and supporting the guardianship authority over women in the families, and the courts are still supporting guardians and punishing women who disobey their guardians, as in the case of Mariam Al-Utaibi, the activist of the guardianship campaign, who chose to live outside her family home and to seek work outside of her father's. And she's now imprisoned for almost a month for disobeying her father. In fact, the state goes to an extra length and order extradition of women who fled their guardians to another country despite the risk involved in their return, as in the case of Dina Lesloum and many others. Vision 2030 did promise some modest reforms, such as an increase of 8% in women's participation in the workforce by 2030, but it didn't empower women by removing the core issues, which are the legal constraints on women to make their choices independent to that of their guardians inside the families. In 2016, Saudi Arabia was ranked as 141 out of 145 countries on the Gender Gap Index, with economic opportunities and political participation as the two domains that are showing the highest gap between men and women. The World Bank study on economic capacity in 2016 showed Saudi Arabia as the highest country in the number of legal gender differences among 173 countries. Married women in particular were faring worse due to the unrecognized non-monetary marital contribution, the citizenship rights, and the obedience restrictions. The government, while seek to open new opportunities for women, continue to uphold and support the guardian's authority over women on their personal choices and affairs. For instance, women pursuing divorce against their husband's wishes in court can be trapped in loopholes in legal battles for years without access to a range of services requiring his consent. In addition, there are special groups of women who are particularly vulnerable, such as the stateless women or women who are unable to obtain their identification documents due to guardians' abuse or fraud, and the migrant female domestic workers. Women without IDs are facing increased burden to represent themselves and seek basic health, education, or other services. Their safety is compromised and they are left with no options but to pursue risky or illegal jobs and accommodations. The violations to female domestic workers and the grave outcomes of suicide or injury are very much prevalent. If economic transformation is expected to happen without addressing such limitations in the personal status law and the clauses of obedience and the constrained choices of women, it is only going to allow this one segment of women who are coming from supportive families to join the workforce, while excluding women who come from controlling families or who are continuously controlled by their guardians. In his 2017 visit, the Special Rapporteur on Poverty highlighted the importance of social protection as a human rights. He highlighted the importance of public participation to benefit from reforms and the difficulty in doing so with the current prohibition on political and civil freedom and the restrictions on freedom of speech. He reported on the disproportionate situation of highly educated women who are representing a tiny proportion in the workforce. There are more reasons to deter women from engaging in economic opportunities than merely a consent of a male guardian. For instance, the ban on women driving, the lack of daycare services at places of work, and the limited choices of jobs, which basically contribute to the issue of unemployment. The state attribute the delay in gender reforms and limitations on civil rights most often to a societal conservatism, when the evidence suggests the opposite, as in the decision to limit the authorities of the religious police, or when thousands of women joined the Scholarships Abroad program, or the mixed work opportunities for women in malls, which witnessed the highest increase in the number of women in the workforce, or when the governmentally organized entertainment events were overwhelmingly attended by the public. The question on delayed reforms is more likely related to the choice of policy adopted by the state and whose group's interests are being considered. For instance, the state offered Uber, the hail taxi service, $3.5 billion from the Saudi Public Investment Fund, and instead of revoking the driving ban, 85% of the company riders are women. At a time of heightened political unrest and insecurity, the state security apparatus and media outlets constantly remind the public of the heavy burden and the penalty involved in opposing the state views, whether on gender reforms or any other public policy. Activists who challenge gender reforms and provide religious or rational justification to implement more gender reforms are targeted by a whole set of legal sanctions that are ranging from detention, writing pledges, prison terms, travel bans, or fines. A source from the Ministry of Interior informed me on conditions of anonymity that there is a growing number of young men and women, including activists, who are being detained and investigated for their participation in online campaigns to revoke the guardianship system or criticizing Vision 2030. So the state attempts at gender reforms, even by joining UN Women or other institutions, remain ineffective unless the root causes of the problem at home are genuinely addressed. Thank you.